So welcome to episode 48, everybody, of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions and votes really do drive everything. They drive the show, they drive what we talk about. Without your questions, well, we just end up talking about ourselves. So please do use the Slido link that we're posting in the chat right now on both LinkedIn and on YouTube to vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and of course to add your own directly to the panel. Level Up is live on Mondays at 8 and Fridays at 2 p.m. UK time, live streamed, of course, to both YouTube and to LinkedIn simultaneously from our studio in South Africa. So you can find out much more about what we do as a business by visiting our website, apmg-international.com. And today we're going to be talking about the top 10 questions that we get asked on a regular basis about Agile project management. But I kind of think that that's going to very quickly expand into a much longer conversation. Agile projects are now the majority, with a huge following as people embrace this way of working and taking new initiatives to market. So let's jump straight in and meet our panel who are waiting for your questions. Joining us for her fourth appearance, actually, on Level Up now is Rayy Babalola. She's an Agile coach, project manager, and the founder of the Agile Squad. So welcome back, Rayy. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me again, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Agile PM is my baby. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, thank you. No, it's an absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. She's joined today by three folks who are making their first appearance on Level Up. Marion Bell is a managing consultant over at BlueVisions and the Institute of Management. She's an inspiring coach and trainer, and she's able to really bring the best out of people, no matter what their circumstances are, which is a skill that I truly, truly applaud. So welcome, Marion. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Nick, and greetings to everybody from Sydney, Australia.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for joining us right across the other side of the world. John Carrington, he is a director and head trainer at the BMLI, where he is an Agile coach, transformation consultant, and a project manager with a background in a whole variety of things, actually, but including things like Six Sigma and Lean. He really does help his clients take a holistic view to managing their Agile transformation journey. So welcome, John. Great to have you on the panel.
Thanks, Nick, and delighted to be here and talk about all things Agile.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Julian Solomon is the Director of Training and Project Management at Thought Nation, who provide Agile Project Management and Practice Framework qualifications, amongst many. He's got a multidisciplinary background in project management, having taught a wide variety of methods and certifications. Welcome, Julian. Great to see you.
Thank you very much, Nick, and it's great to join you all from South Africa, from Johannesburg.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Now, to everybody who's watching us online, don't be shy. Please introduce yourselves in the chat, start that conversation off, and get those questions in to the panel. Our question master for today, who's going to be managing all of the question queue and choosing the questions for us to be able to answer, is Suchitra Jacob. She joins us from Bangalore in India. So welcome, Suchitra, and may we have our first question, please.
Hello, everybody. First question is from Wendy in Perth. Should I go on to sit the Agile Project Management Practitioner exam, or is Agile PM Foundation sufficient?
Okay, let's start off with Marion first, please, and then we'll go to Rayy.
Wendy, I would suggest it would depend on where you are in your career and what you want to do with your career. If you want to focus on Agile Project Management, then probably you do want to do the practitioner.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Rayy and then Julian.
I'm going to say I'm going to sort of echo that. It depends what you want it for. The foundation is literally just that, to find out what does this mean, what does that mean, who does this, who does that. The practitioner is more how they do it. So it puts the PM in the center of the course and say, how do they coordinate all the different environments? So if you want to start to apply for roles that need you to actually help tailor the process to fit each project or each company, then I strongly recommend that you do the practitioner. Otherwise, keep it going with the foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rayy. And Julian, your thoughts, please?
Yes, and to echo my panelists, it really depends on the role that you are going to be fulfilling in the environment. If you are the project manager, then going to do a practitioner would be really good because it takes you deeper into the application of Agile PM, which tests your skill and your understanding, rather than with the foundation, which really tests memory and your basic understanding of Agile PM.
Yeah, absolutely. Some really good advice there from the panel. Just so that you're aware, around about 2/3, actually, a little bit more, a little bit higher than that, of folks who take the foundation go on to take practitioner, and many of whom are doing that. They're doing it pretty much straight away, okay, because they're seeing the value in thinking about the practical application of the understanding rather than just the understanding itself. However, balanced against that, if you are going to be an individual contributor and you're working on a project rather than trying to engagement lead or deliver in the future a project yourself, then foundation is a brilliant place to begin. Okay, build that firm foundation and go on from there, really. So some different thoughts for you from across our panel, and a really good first question, so thank you very much indeed, Wendy. Suchitra, let's move on, please. We'll take our next question.
Question from Amanda Harrison. Could you provide examples of where Agile, including Scrum and or DSDM, have been used in non-IT projects and not in a product or service design capacity?
Okay, thank you very much. Rayy, can you start us off on this, please, and then we'll hear from John.
Yes, so I trained a fantastic all-female events company called The Zoo, and they basically, it's events. What is an event is a small project. So they have to work with other clients like Coachella, Spotify, and co, and they have to break down how they're going to work to them. So it really helped them to understand what the clients want, and for their clients to understand how they are working. It's about doing the same things you're doing, just in a different way, in a different order. So yeah, it's very popular in events environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. John, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, that's a great question, Amanda, and something I'm really passionate about. Agile methods obviously started off in software development, but I'm really keen and enthusiastic about helping to apply those techniques across lots of different scenarios. I've got an example myself of actually using Agile methods with a charity, actually abroad in Nepal, where we were doing a classroom build. And we needed Agile techniques because traditional project management wasn't going to work when there were so many unseen uncertainties going on. So it can be applied across the board and not just software development. And more people are starting to think outside the box and apply it in lots of different circumstances.
Thank you very much indeed, John. And Marion?
With COVID and everything happening in the last couple of years, the plan-driven projects are a little bit more difficult, especially with people working at home. And we found that particularly anything that is non-linear is a good application for Agile. So I even take this further into my personal life, where I'm perhaps planning for some sporting event, and training, getting fit, getting ready for competition is not linear. So I do these sort of 2-week sprints where I will look at perhaps going to the gym, my diet, all that kind of stuff, and then see the results from that, and then regroup and do another sprint based on those results. So it can be used for anything. It doesn't have to even be business related.
That's a really, really good idea, actually. Marion, I am the antithesis of that. Okay, I use sprints to reach for things like Jaffa cakes or a cup of tea, something like that. But really great applications. And now look, I think years and years and years ago, these methods were firmly in the IT domain. Okay, but now C-suites around the world, business leaders around the world are asking organizations to become more agile, be more flexible, get to market faster, think on your feet, do things, respond, react, and in a very uncertain world, and goodness me, isn't our world uncertain right now? And the last few years that we've lived through has brought it to an entirely different level. So now is the time for those stand-up, short ways of communicating with people. Now is the time to embrace agile methodologies, to think about the flexibility and the capability that you have across colleagues, different locations, and bring them together in a very productive way. So fantastic question, highly relevant, I would say, for the moment, and some really good examples, panel. So thank you very much indeed. Suchitra, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Question from Mathilde Rubel. What are the steps you would recommend to get started with Agile Project Management?
Okay, steps to get started then. Rayy and then John.
My thing has always been find your ideal place and work back. Have a blueprint of what you want. And I'm going to say, when you are applying for jobs, the job description, the duties, the roles, they're telling you what they want. So find your ideal job. All of those skills is basically what you're aiming to work towards, and that's where you want to be. Please work backwards, because otherwise you could kind of go into 10 different directions, and there's 10 different kinds of qualifications, and there's 10 different kinds of things. Please start simply and work back. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really good advice. It can be a bit kind of overwhelming, really, at first, can't it, to sort of chart your course a wee bit. So, John, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Marion.
Yes, and building on what Rayy said, really, it's good to have a success criteria in mind to really understand what success looks like for you. And I'd always recommend, when you're thinking of embarking on an agile project, is really spending some time helping people to understand exactly what that means. So getting involved with stakeholders and spending some time helping them to understand what's entailed and the implications of working in an agile way.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, John. Marion, and then Julian.
Adding to what John has said, I would sort of do some research first. There are over 50 different methods of agile project management. Have a look at what they are, look at the type of work that you're going to do, and then try and make a decision as to which would suit you best.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And Julian?
To build on what Marion has said, it's about understanding, doing some research in the environment, and then also understanding what are the skills that are necessary to be able to perform in that particular environment. So then trying to understand, do I have those communication skills? Do I have those negotiation skills? Do I have those leadership skills that are important to drive agile project management effectively and efficiently?
Absolutely right. Now, there's lots of free resources out there. Okay, there's self-study content which is available to you. There's lots and lots of, material that's available on YouTube and other platforms to help you understand the world of Agile and this kind of stuff. But I do think that fairly early on, it's a good idea to, within your organization, there will be people who are a little bit further on in the journey, and maybe you could find somebody to coach or mentor you, somebody even just to buddy up with, all right, to learn about this stuff together, because that can make a big difference, all right, and bring you into a situation where you're able to scrutinize a little better and say, okay, this advice is really great, worth taking this advice, perhaps, let's say. All right, now look, we can see a large number of people online now who are following the event, so thank you for doing that. And if you want to put a question directly to the panel, now is your choice. So just type it into the chat, and one of our colleagues who are managing the social media feeds will scoop it up and they'll bring it into Slido for us so that the panel can see it. All right, very good. So Suchitra, let's have our next question, please.
Question from Patricia De Mesa. If a company is transitioning from traditional to agile project management, how will agile methods be applied if the team size is too large?
Marion, start us off with this, then we'll go to John.
Almost going back to the first question we had, where when do you do foundation and when do you do practitioner? If you've got an organization that needs to transfer to agile ways of thinking and working, this is where I would get everybody who's going to be actively involved in the projects and make sure they do all the training right through to practitioner. And then anybody who's going to touch the project, just give them foundations to give them a bit of an understanding of the transformation that the organization is going through and where we're headed towards.
Thank you very much indeed. John?
Yes, I think just adding there to what's been said is that when we're transitioning to Agile methods really start where we are. And so it's important to understand where the organization is already. And sometimes it's the case that we have things that are less than ideal in terms of Agile techniques. So we might start, for example, with large team sizes. And quite often that's the case when I'm working with a client. We'll find that there are, big teams, stand-ups that last, half an hour, 45 minutes. And during the process of transformation, we often find that actually as teams and organizations really get underneath understanding what Agile techniques are and what's important about them, we start to move towards more ideal Agile structures. So smaller teams, stand-ups that only take 15 minutes, that type of thing. It's a work in progress.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Rayy and then Julian.
So the first thing for me is when there is any sort of transition, let's find out what actually works. Before we start changing anything, what's working, and let's try to keep it that way. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to empower people to be self-organized and to be confident enough to do their work. That will take time. I'm just going to speak some best practice and just say it can take an organization up to 7 years to become totally agile. And it is that because it is very complex. You're changing cultural behavior, you're chopping and changing people's job roles, and you're creating cross-functional teams. This could take time, but it's very important to see what was working at the start so that you don't have as much disruption. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really good point there. It is a journey. It's not necessarily a destination from that perspective. Julian, please, final thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Rayy, and there's no switch over from traditional over to Agile PM. It's going to be a process. There's cultural norms, there's cultural processes, there's organizational issues that come into play and that can have an impact on the way you're going to manage teams. And so you're starting with larger teams, and as you understand the roles and functions of each of the roles, so you then begin to evolve the process of working with teams that are capable then of delivering what you intend them to deliver, rather than having people on the team for the sake of having people on the team.
Yeah, it's an important aspect, really, isn't it? I would suggest as well, there's a couple of resources for you to consider, Patricia. So the first one is to think about getting involved with a membership body, all right? Because a membership body will help you contextualize the journey that you're going through. So the Agile Business Consortium themselves have a great membership scheme. It's not expensive, and it's a good way to be able to spend time with folks who are either slightly ahead of you on that journey, or colleagues who are going through a kind of similar transformation. So that's one resource for you. The other thing that I would consider as well is just looking at the blend of change management with Agile, okay, that is going to make the most sense for you. And that kind of Agile change world is coming together a great deal now, because people are recognizing that there are good practices, leading practices from the world of change management that you can apply in an Agile context to bring everybody with you. So it's something to really look about. Membership bodies, Agile Business Consortium, and also start thinking about the application of change management within an Agile context. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Some great ideas there. Let's move on to Suchitra, and we'll take our next question, please.
Question from Anuradha Sunkaranam. What is best in today's corporate world, PMP Certified or Agile Certified?
Okay, all right. Well, that's a very direct question, isn't it? Marion, do you want to kind of start us off, and then we'll hear, I think we're going to go around everybody. So we're going to hear from Rayy, and then from Julian, and then we'll all chip in. So Marion, start us off, get us underway.
I just think depends on the environment and what type of project you're going to be working on. Certainly with Agile PM, if you require a more structured approach to Agile methodologies, then that's probably the one to look at. Otherwise, just have a look at all of them and just see what the good and bad points are and make a decision from there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And Julian, please.
Obviously, it depends on your organizational requirements as well, what kind of style of organization you are, what industry you are working in, because some industries tend to more PMP style of project methodologies and others more agile. So that helps a lot. So for personally, it's really about your own career advancement as well. Where do you see yourself in the future? What industry environment are you working in? Are you working in a dynamic environment where there are lots of changes? Or are you working in those more linear environments that tend to more structured project methodology styles?
Okay, thank you, Rayy, and then John.
I echo that. So it was literally like what I said before, find your ideal job and work your way backwards. There are so many different qualifications, and what you've asked might not be the best for where you're trying to go. So please find your ideal job and then get a gist of what that environment wants. Some environments prefer Scrum to anything else because they're quite fast paced. And if you have that PSM 1, 2, and 3, you're on your way. But do your research and work backwards again. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, building on what Rayy said, really, I think it's important to think about where you want to be in your career, what kind of environment you'd like to work in. Increasingly, most organizations are in the process of transforming to agile methods somewhere within the organization. So doing an agile qualification is always going to stand you in good stead in that sense. And then, start with Agile PM, maybe do a foundation and explore out from there.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to kind of add. The first one is that often people are attracted to certifications because they are popular, and that's absolutely right and proper. Okay. At the same time, if you're joining an army of people who already have that, by definition, you are not differentiating yourself from them. Okay. So from that point of view, you really, to Rayy's point and John's and Julian's and Marion's, you really kind of need to think about you and your context, all right, and where you want to go from a career perspective and from an employment perspective. Another place to go and look that brings all of these worlds together in a really elegant way, and it's online all the time and it's available to everybody on the internet, is praxisframework.org. Okay, Praxis Framework actually brings together all of these worlds very, very well. So if you've got a background and you've taken PMP or you've taken Prince 2, you've taken, Agile PM or whatever, and you're put into a situation where you're trying to work with colleagues who have other disciplines in the background, praxisframework.org is a fantastic resource. Okay, knocks the ball out of the park, if I can use a North American kind of analogy there. All right, so do go and have a look at that. It's totally open and totally free and driven by the community, actually. So it's a great initiative. Thank you very much indeed, panel, and a great question. So highly relevant. So thank you for that. Suchitra, let's take our next question, please.
We have a live question from Amanda. You mentioned being totally agile, which suggests it is possible and desirable to fully replace traditional PM techniques with agile. Is this realistic?
Rayy, start us off, please.
I've never been. Oh, actually, tell a lie. I've only been 2 places that are completely agile from start to finish, and that means policies were written, procedures were written to facilitate the agile way of working, but they were brand new. They were new companies starting from the ground. It's very rare to have a company be completely Agile, and especially the larger that you get. Some environments need more detail. They need to have detailed discussions, and that's never really going to change. Some procedures and policies are older than everyone on this call, so we can't just up and change it. It's the beauty about Agile is that it fits into most environments, and you can tailor it to fit where you are. So you can't be totally agile, but you can have that agile mindset, and you get things done in an orderly manner, and you don't miss anything. Agile is, dare I say, built on avoiding risks, and that's what it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Marion.
It really depends on the type of project as well that you're running. There are some projects that just lend themselves better to traditional project management techniques. But I think if you want to be a serious contender in the project management space these days, you need to know traditional project management, you need to know agile project management, and you need to know when it's best to use either of those in a hybrid type environment.
That's such a key insight. The ability to judge and to know when. I absolutely agree with you, Marion. John, your thoughts?
Completely agree with Marion just there. I'd also add that actually starting off in an organization with agile projects is often a good idea, is to start off with a particular project, or we talk about the agile bubble, and running agile transformation experiments within your organization to see how well these ideas and techniques are adopted within a team environment before you start to build it out across the organization. So in line with agile thinking, really start small and build out from there, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, completely agree, panel. Some great insight from everybody there. I suppose my view here would be it would depend on the scale. Okay, so if you're thinking, is it possible to swap one out for another on an individual project or initiative level? Absolutely, yes, it is. It's just going to take a lot longer to build that out into, department level, functional level, location level, or even enterprise level, where you're dealing with multiple teams across multiple countries and multiple time zones. Might be a longer journey. So some really good insight. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Let's move on. We'll take our next question, please. I can see they're really stacking up now.
Another live question from Faisal. I hold PMP ITIL Specialist, Scrum Master, and Agile Master certifications. Is it worth going for Agile PM after that?
Well, firstly, Faisal, I think you're a great example of what I would call the portfolio career lifelong learner. All right, my friend. So really very well done indeed for continuing your professional development. Marion and then Julian.
I'm a great believer in remaining current and making sure that you continue to study, and also consider all those digital badges that you can add to your email signature and to LinkedIn. Really makes you look smart.
Okay, very good. It's a good point. We should come back to that in a few minutes, actually. Julian, please, next, and then Rayy.
I like this. I like this question. And yes, I have a number of these certifications as well. But it's really about when you're going to be using each of them. I really like Agile PM because it looks at the full life cycle of the project, right from the pre-project, right through the project life cycle, the delivery, the deployment, right through to even benefits assessment thereafter. So I really like Agile PM in that it has that full scope, it's scalable, and that helps with more complex projects as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Rayy and then John.
I would say yes, it is worth going for because it's a totally different method. As I'm sure you would know, Faisal, each method is different. What does this mean? What does that mean? You might be able to then map it better. So no matter what environment you then go and consult into, you know what they all mean. You can help them map it. So it's always great to learn a new method and carry on to wherever you go. Well done as well. That's a lot. Well done.
Yep.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It's a great track record. John, your thoughts, please.
Yes, thanks. Faisal, first of all, congratulations. I think you, like me, are a lifelong learner, and I think that's really important. when you're learning agile techniques is to not just get one view or perspective on things. I think the more trainings that you do, the more that you realize that there are some underlying principles and concepts that are present in lots of different frameworks that you can apply under lots of different scenarios, and you'll be well placed to select the most appropriate techniques because you understand the underlying principles.
Yeah, most certainly. And I want to just touch on those digital credentials for a moment. One of the things that that I've noticed throughout my career is the pace of change has accelerated. I think that's a natural human reflection, to be able to say so. I remember 1970 and 1970 to 2022 to this year is the same period of time from 1918 to 1970. So why am I surprised that things have changed a lot? I should not be surprised at all. Digital credentialing is the way in which you're able to demonstrate your aptitude to do things. So even if you are fully occupied doing other things, all right, if you want to break into the world of agile project management, getting a digital credential is the way for you to be able to demonstrate to others online that you have the aptitude to move into that discipline. And quite frankly, Faisal, if your electronic CV had all of those things on it and Agile PM, I kind of think you'd be very attractive to work in a whole range of different circumstances to bring those communities together. So very good luck with your further learning journey, and please keep in touch. And in fact, Faisal, volunteer, my friend, come on the panel, come and join us, okay, to talk and share some of your experience about your learning journey so far. Thanks very much indeed. Suchitra, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Question from Scott. Could you explain the meaning of the Agile mindset?
Oh, what a fantastic philosophical question for us. Who's going to have a go at explaining the Agile mindset? John, start us off.
I could start us off. My background's psychology, and I approach this whole field from that standpoint. And we get asked this question a lot, Scott, and it's a great question. And it's kind of related to the previous question, really, because there are lots of different methods and frameworks that are out there in the market right now that will help you to get started with Agile, to scale Agile, lots of different approaches. But fundamentally, there are some principles and concepts that underlie all of the frameworks. And what we're trying to do, whatever framework we're adopting, is to achieve business agility. And that's the key thing to really keep in mind, is that how do we enable the organization and the people within it to achieve greater agility? So fundamentally, having that agile mindset is framework agnostic to a certain extent and helping to think in a more agile way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Some great insight there. And Rayy, how would you paraphrase the Agile mindset?
Agile mindset is, okay, I'm going to ask, has anyone ever had a project, be it a wedding, moving house, building a whole fancy new software, ever had a project run smoothly from start to finish, no headache, nothing went wrong? The answer is
No.
usually, look, everyone's shaking their head.
No.
It's usually no. The thing is that we know that. We know that. Now we're saying, let's plan for that. Things will always happen. Life will always happen. Factors will always change. There's business change, legal change, weather change, pandemic. Things will always happen. We're saying, being agile is just saying we understand that things will fail. Let's make sure that we break things down. At the end of that period, let's look at it. If it's failed, we replan and we carry on. If it doesn't work, if it's not fixed, if there's no point of carrying on, then we don't carry on with the work. We avoid wasting time, we avoid wasting money just by agreeing that things will never be totally smooth. I'm planning for it, and it's agile. We adapt. Thank you.
Fantastic, both of you. Thank you so much indeed. the thing all of the time is, what has not changed since 1970 to now, arguably, is the top 10 reasons why projects fail. And actually, if you dig underneath the surface of what those top 10 reasons are, you'll find that if people were a little bit more flexible, if they were a little bit more thinking on their feet, collaborative, learnt together and so on, maybe there would be fewer, projects that underwhelmed, and that's all part of getting into, if you like, that agile mindset and really thinking a little bit differently about the complexity of the problems and the number of moving parts that we have around us every day. Very good. Suchitra, let's press on then from philosophy to something else and take our next question.
Question from Aditya Kumar from Noida. Is there a specific tool to engage stakeholders in Agile project management?
Very good. A specific tool. What are your thoughts, Marion? Anything you could recommend?
Well, Agile is all about collaboration. And not only just in Agile PM, but in any type of project that we do. The more we collaborate with our stakeholders, the easier it is to actually work out what it is that they want and to make sure that we deliver a project that actually meets their requirements. So I would say it doesn't matter whether it's Agile PM or traditional project management, collaborate. And that is one of the part of the manifesto of Agile in the first place.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much, Julian, and then Rayy.
Well, I think for stakeholders, very importantly, is to have a good understanding of who your stakeholders are. So doing a stakeholder analysis is important. Who are going to touch my project? Who are going to impact my project? Who's going to affect my project anyway? And that will determine what kind of communication and collaboration mechanisms and tools and practices I use to engage with them, be able to enjoy a really good project.
Excellent answer, Julian. Couldn't agree more. Let's start with thinking out who these folks are, where are they, and how to actually engage with them. It's so important. Really good advice. Thank you very much. Rayy, you've done a tremendous amount of stakeholder engagement. How do you go about it?
I'm going to go back to best practice and use this book. Where's my angle? This book right here. But the Agile PM manual. So we teach there's a document, aka products, called the MAD. All PMs are MAD. Your management approach definition, and this is where you basically map out all your stakeholders. Who needs to know what and when? Who are your VIPs? Who are the VIPs? Who are the IPs? And who are the IIPs? You have to understand what each stakeholder requires as well. And here's where I lean on my business analyst. I'm going to say that I love a BA. A BA and a PM together, they make magic, because one is responsible for the requirements and for ensuring that we know who needs to be involved at what point and updated, and the other is there to manage the project environment. That together is fire. So I would say, please, all Agile PMs, all certified Agile PMs, go back to your management approach definition. It's in your handbook and you should be using it. There we go. There it is.
Hey. Great advice.
I was going to get it right.
Yeah. It's kind of always within arm's reach. I've got an Agile PM manual, and just slightly out of arm's reach. Can't quite get to it at the moment. Otherwise, I would have brought it on screen for you. But yeah, absolutely right. Some really, really good advice. What a fantastic question. So thank you very much indeed for putting it to the panel. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Marion. Perfect product placement. There you are. Okay, excellent. Very well done indeed. It's kind of proof of the pudding. All right, these things are not, just gathering dust on shelves. They're actually used all of the time by all of us. Okay, so it's a really, really good resource for you to be able to get hold of. Let's move on, and we'll take our next question, Suchitra, if we can.
Amanda has asked another live question. How do you determine whether waterfall or agile approach is the most suitable for a specific project?
All right. So it's a kind of a question really about where do you begin and start thinking about which method or approach you would like to use. So Rayy, start us off and then we'll hear from Marion.
I'm just going to start, but I'm just going to say Agile is designed for complex environments. So let's just start with that? Do you need it? Do you need to use this method? Is it that complex, or is it as simple as let's just make a list and do the work, or do we really have to break it down? So I'm just going to say complex environments need to be identified, and that's what Agile is for. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Marion.
I would say as well, adding to what Rayy has said, if you have a very clear outcome for a project and very clear steps and processes for that project, you could probably then take a waterfall approach. If you're not sure where the outcome of this project is going, so we're almost going to sort of do something, see what the result of that is, see what the feedback from our clients is, and then maybe even move in a totally different direction, that would then be more of an agile type approach. So I think including complexity, but also uncertainty of what the final product is going to be would determine whether it's agile or waterfall.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think also the circumstances, the ecosystem in which you're working. So you may want to think a little bit differently. There's a continuum here. First of all, the complexity. So short and simple and straightforward projects you can approach in one way. Large, complex, long-term projects you may look at in another way. Right? It is one end of the scale to be thinking about evaluating a piece of work. It's another end of the scale to think about implementing and running the outcome of a piece of work. So if you take an infrastructure example, the thought about how you might consider what infrastructure changes might be needed in utility supply is very different to actually putting them into place and running them and managing and maintaining them afterwards. So, it's on that continuum somewhere. So I would look at that continuum. I would consider as well, culturally, are you ready to go all in one or the other? Because in reality, actually, very experienced PMs tend to pick and choose and tend to blend very, very well and very successfully in some of the most innovative projects. And the best outcomes have come from understanding the organization themselves, the culture of the organization, working with it as against kind of forcing something to happen, against the kind of cultural flow. So very good. Let's move on. Some great questions. Thank you, Amanda, so much. I think you're going to win our engagement award for today. Okay, so very good. Let's move on, Suchitra.
Question from Paul in Wellington. What are some of the key skills an Agile project manager needs?
John, let's start with you, please.
It's a great question, Paul. Thank you. I think one of the key skills is the ability to influence stakeholders and other people on the project. And I guess I'd like to emphasize the importance of the ability to coach people, to bring people on the journey, and to manage quite significant change in a lot of situations. And being able to recognize the change is quite significant that you're asking people to embark on. So I guess a certain amount of empathy is required when you're dealing with that type of change.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Julian, and then Rayy, please.
Communication. I guess it's one of the fundamentals of Agile. So the project manager needs to be able to communicate and communicate well, which means listening attentively, being able to engage with these team members, and then building the team effectively as well, which is understanding at which level is my team in their growth dynamic, with the ability to lead appropriately and negotiate effectively as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Rayy.
Right, let's see what else is left. I think you have to be a good facilitator, because as a PM, you need to be in a point where you can drive conversations, but let the people that are doing the work lead it and take it on and finish it. So I think it's very important to know when to shush. Bring the right people in the same room, ensure that they're going to talk about the right things, be there to ensure that everyone has a chance to speak and is heard, but you don't actually do the work. You don't do the talking. You facilitate that conversation, and you're also the facilitator of the change. When processes have to be restructured or built fresh and new, it's going to be you that goes out, explain it to people, and take on their, I don't like it, I hate it, and help fix it some more. So you have to be a fantastic facilitator. And to echo what John said, be empathetic. Empathy goes a long way, a fantastically long way. So thank you.
Yeah, such really good advice. It reminds me of another panelist, a lady called Louisa Leung from Perth in Western Australia, and she was talking about that a great deal and about the power that becoming a fantastic facilitator can deliver for you. You know, and it just makes all of the difference. You know, you can teach stones to jump if you can use facilitation techniques in the right way. So it's most definitely an attribute of successful people, you know, to be able to do that. So research a little bit more about, you know, facilitation and look that up and choose some of those techniques and try them out in different meetings, virtually or physical, and you'll find that it makes a really big difference in the future. Okay, all right, very good. So we've got time for a couple more questions, panel. So let's move on quickly and see if we can get 2 more in before we wrap up.
A live question from Mahmoud Abdelal. Is there such a thing like wagile approach? Some programs might require a mix of both approaches to reach a specific objective.
Okay, wow. I think, Mohammed, you have just invented a new concatenation of words there. I know in the German language, generally, if there's nothing culturally available, then they'll join 2 or 3 words together to create a new word. So wagile may be coming to us all pretty soon. Marion and then Rayy, please.
All right, so we've already got that as known as a hybrid approach to projects. And again, it's just knowing when to use traditional and when to use agile. And it depends on the project as to which is the better one. So generally, I wouldn't say agile or traditional is better than each other. It depends on the application.
Okay, thank you very much, Rayy, and then Julian.
I clap on that, and I'm going to say, this might hurt some people, but I'm going to say it anyways. The way I see Agile working with other things is that if you're going to build a house, you're going to have to use a traditional approach to do it. You can't build rooms and not have a roof there or have things. Certain things will come before the other. I say use Prince 2 to build the house, use Agile PM to design everything, which room comes first, all the detail and that sort of stuff. It works very well together. I personally don't like this agile approach because it can bring 10 different things into one, which I don't, and I think it makes it more complicated, but both work well together. Agile,
Okay,
here we
thank
are.
you very
Here we
much
are. Thank
indeed.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you. Julian?
Yeah, I think they do complement one another, and I do, as Marion says, we have the hybrid approach, and it's a lot about the scope clarification and scope definition. In some environments, scope definition needs a lot of effort and a lot of design, and in other environments, that will emerge as we're progressing. So it really depends on where you're working and in which stage of the project lifecycle, what the driver of the project was initially anyway, be able to then determine, you know, at which stage do I use which type of methodology, as it were.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed, panel.
Technical.
Brilliant answers, as ever. Let's move on. Suchitra, I think we've got time just to fit in one last question, please.
A question from Kawar Ikhlas. Why are majority of projects run over despite being managed through Agile Project Management?
Okay, thank you very much. John, start us off on this.
Yeah, I think this very much relates to the previous question, actually. I think that lots of organizations adopt a hybrid approach, and some projects are delivered neither agile nor waterfall. I think a lot could be benefited from picking one approach or another and delivering well against that approach. I think when you try to mix different techniques, it can often result in things that are unexpected or out of control. And additionally, I think rather than thinking in terms of whether a project would be suited towards waterfall or agile methods, perhaps another consideration is whether the organisation is at a point when it's ready to change to agile techniques.
Indeed. Let's go to Rayy next, and then Marion, please.
I would say Agile is not a magic paintbrush. I think a lot of organizations have that confused in that we're going Agile, it's going to fix everything, while the project is going to be on time. But it's still the same people that are working on these projects that were failing before and are still overrunning now. We need to think about what is the core issue. Is it that the quality that we're trying to meet isn't set clearly from the start, and then we don't meet it? But to be fair, if you use any project management method from start to finish, as it says in the book, and to be fair, you shouldn't be late. But look at your organization, what happens in there. That's why. It's not the method, it's the project. It's where you are, it's the culture, and Agile's not going to fix it all.
Thank you. Thank you. Great insight. Marion, and then Julian.
I think before we start any projects, regardless of whether they're traditional or agile, we've got to be realistic about how much work we can actually do in a time box. And I think sometimes we overestimate how much we can do. And sometimes I think we have perhaps project sponsors and more senior people in the team who try to force us to do a little bit more. And, you know, another skill that we need to have as a project manager is the ability to actually say no. We don't have the time to do this, or what are we going to prioritize rather than, you know, and reassess our priorities to make sure that we don't overrun, and we just need to be realistic about what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I guess it's about the constraint environment of scope, time, cost, quality, and what do we determine to be fixed in our environment as opposed to what we will use as variables, and that would help us to determine, you know, and managing that effectively helps us to be able to deliver successful outcomes as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. The other thing that I would say about this is about, you know, the why question. Why are the majority of projects, why do they run over? Okay. Human beings, as human beings, we have a lot of bias, right, in our judgment. And one of them is called optimism bias. Okay. So I would just ask us, it's a great thing, all right? It's a wonderful thing because you get up every day. It's like, today's a great day, okay? Today we're gonna be able to achieve all of this stuff, right? And without that, we would fail, all right, miserably every day. But one of the things to be aware of is a little bit of that, okay? Just because we're enthusiastic, because we're committed, because we're 100% behind something doesn't necessarily mean that we're able to deliver it instantly. So just be aware of that little bit of optimism bias, you know, when you're thinking about setting expectations around timescales and these kinds of things. All right, very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. And what a brilliant set of questions we have had today from everybody all around the world. Thank you so much for joining in. If you've been suggesting new hybrid words for us to be able to articulate the challenges that we have, or if you've been probing the panel, you know, either philosophically or in their knowledge of the methods and the approaches and their experience of applying them in real life. So let's hear some closing remarks if we can. We'll walk around the panel in sequence. So John, your closing remarks first, please, and then Marion.
Just a few words of thanks, really, Nick. Thanks for inviting me onto the panel, and thank you to my fellow panelists. And of course, thank you to the participants for some really great questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Marion, and then Rayy.
Again, also, just to echo what John has said, thank you very much for this opportunity. This has been sort of most enjoyable, even learning stuff myself from listening to the other panelists. And then just to everybody who's listening, don't underestimate the value of what an education and learning can do for your career.
Powerful advice. And I have to say, Marion, in every episode of Level Up, I learn a heap load of new things. So you're absolutely right there. Rayy, and then Julian.
Thank you so much for having me up again. And my closing statement is just for any organization that is looking to take this journey to agility, please look at the John Cotter model. We don't want a breaking wave. We want a sustainable wave that will ensure that your business and the policies that you create will stand the test of time and pandemic. So please think about the way that you're going to change. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely right. Balance your organization like a pro surfer on the top of that sustainable wave. It all ends rather messily, okay, if the wave breaks. So really, really good advice there. Julian, your closing thoughts, please.
Thank you very much, Nick, and thanks to all the rest of my panelists as well. I thoroughly enjoyed today, I must be honest. But we just started to scratch the surface of Agile, and Agile is this enormous, can I call it a monster? But what we did here is that there are quite a number of resources. Go and find out. There's a lot of certifications that we could utilize to actually help us to do that. But start where you are and then work your way forward as you're going along. And thank you very much to everyone and all of the participants online.
Excellent. You're absolutely right, John. So, sorry, Julian, we're going to try and invite you back again, my friend, all right, so that we can explore a little more of this hybrid world that we're all working in and living in and delivering value from. Now, look, if you're watching online, I'm sure that you have been inspired by our panel today. Suchitra, what are your closing thoughts on today's episode?
It has been a great show, and we've had some amazing questions from our live audience as well. So thank you to everyone watching, and amazing insights from our panelists. I've personally learned a lot from the show. So thank you to everyone.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Suchitra. Great job as well of selecting the questions from our producers. And our producers, of course, are everybody who is watching online and driving the show with their thoughts and their ideas and their questions. So look, if you're getting value from our content, please do leave a comment below and help spread the word by liking and sharing the video. This is so important, actually, because you've discovered Level Up. Help others to do the same, please, and let them level up their career alongside us all. You can search for now and view the answers to over 700 questions on our website on apmg-international.com/level up, an amazing free resource that connects you with over 80 experts from all around the world. Friday the 18th, coming up on Level Up, we return to a topic which is rarely out of the news at the moment, with the threats that are present to our homes, our families, and of course our businesses, with a special look about how to become a cybersecurity professional to the NIST framework, the NIST standards from North America. Monday the 21st, 1 week today, is a real milestone for us. We're actually going to celebrate episode 50 of Level Up. Now then, in true YouTube fashion, this is going to be quite a special event. So for that, we're going to be exploring the future skills that project managers may need. So we're going to be imagining the future, from big data to big ideas, from servant leadership to emotional intelligence. What do you think the future skills are going to be so important that we should be discussing them next week for project managers? We'll also be giving away 2 APMG examination vouchers. So be sure to log in early. Take your seat for this key episode of Level Up. Subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you can join us here on the panel and, of course, level up your career with APMG.